Welcome back, man. Welcome back to the Common Ground story on the Superman Show. We are currently on episode number 8, the wrap-up. Unfortunately, since our last episode, we lost our brother Profile. So episodes 6 and 7 were really the last time we got a chance to sit down with him and just talk. And without us meaning to do it, we gave him his flowers to his face while he was alive and expressed our gratitude towards him for his presence in our lives. And for that I am grateful. And we did record a wrap-up session after we finished that last episode, number 7, but we never put out the project before he passed away. So we felt that we needed to go back in and try to re-record a wrap-up of what we really learned from this. And that's what you're about to listen to. It's Agony and Shottie again, along with me, sobered up from this event and kind of talking through what we went through on our journey. So sit back, take a listen to the last episode. Want to thank everybody who was part of our journey, everybody that we mentioned throughout the entire Common Ground story, everybody from Miami-Dade, Kendall, all of Miami really, and different artists in general that influenced us, challenged us, inspired us to continue what we do and move forward, keep making music. Everybody kept making music after this. And just so it's a little smooth transition, the last song you're going to hear on this one is what we've been using as basically our theme song. I've been using the instrumental for Realize. Realize is the first track we had with the 4MCs and Profile. And it's one of our favorite tracks that it's just for our fans. They love it, and I love it too. It's a classic. So we'll get into the episode. We'll end it with Realize. And just want to thank you guys, man, for real, from the bottom. CG, baby. All day, every day. For life.
We're coming out! Guns blazing! Blazing! Blazing!
Trippers.
Yes. Welcome back to the Superman Show, the Common Ground story. We keep calling it the Superman Show, but it's really the Common Ground story at the end of the day. I'm a member of Common Ground, and we had a chance to look back at what we did and talk to each other and get a lot of conversations out and create a nice drunk party vibe energy that you can hear us talk our shit and just kind of tell our story. And we've actually finished recording our last story with Agony and Shottie. And at this point, we need to kind of wrap it up, huh? We've tried this a few times, and for some reason, it just hasn't popped off right. And right now, like we're trying to bring it together, trying to have this conversation about what exactly we went through this process and learning it. And actually, word to Shottie, because that was a really good idea. What made you even think that we should delve into, our whole story and our whole background?
Oh, you mean the idea for the podcast itself?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like we always end up meeting up to hang out or whatever, and we're always talking about back in the day, and we have like all this like rich history, you know what I mean? So I think it was just one day we're having one of those conversations where we're like referencing, all the shit, all the ups, the downs, and all the, kind of the different things that we've gone through and shit. And, I thought like, this is drama. This is good drama. You know what I mean? And like I said, there's a lot of highs, a lot of lows. There's, I think, a lot of lessons that can be learned from it, even if you don't know who the fuck we are, which, like, let's be honest, most people don't. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I thought it would be a cool thing to document. You feel me?
Yeah. And I thought it was real cool that we were able to get, Agony involved from the beginning.
Well, that was the plan from the beginning, though. I said you should moderate it, and this talk should be kind of between me and Agony. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Exactly. And what did you think about it when we presented the idea to you, Agony?
I was all down for it. I really thought that there was definitely a lot to tell and a lot to say, just one and the same. And, there was so many different perspectives on kind of what happened over the time that we were heavily involved together, right? And so when you presented the opportunity to say, well, let's just get together and do it, I mean, to Shot's point, we get together not as often as probably we'd like to, but when we do, we always have that nostalgic moment and think about times that have passed and things that we've done and how things played out. And so, to me, at least, I have those conversations I think are interesting enough that we, hopefully other people can listen to this and take something from it and learn more about us. For the few people that do even know about us, I think there's some good stories to know about, what's happened over the course of the years and even in the very beginning, how we came to form. Because for a lot of the people that are quote unquote fans, all they know is the music, right? And they hear that. And to this day, I get people that come out, I think it came up during one of the recordings where to some folks, like the Common Ground album is still their favorite out of all the stuff that we've put out.
Which is blasphemous.
I know.
Shottie hates that shit.
But to me, like no disrespect and I'm not trying to make a comparison, but it's not a comparison of project to project. It's more so of just the way it's looked at. It's kind of like the Common Ground album's like our 36 Chambers, right?
Yeah.
So it's always gonna have that initial impact of like, holy shit, like these dudes got together and put these tracks together and put this project together. One producer throughout the project and it was I can see where to some folks it has that type of they have that type of connection to it. But
the nostalgia, because they were, they remember those years that were, really influential, a lot of energy, and those years stick. Music sticks, and all albums that we listen to, that we still listen to those albums. So it's weird for us, or maybe I'm more of a fan from that perspective, because I really wasn't involved in making the Common Ground album. I was watching you guys make it, really, and trying to help get it out or do what I could do on my side. But as far as just going to the sessions and watching you guys make an album, and 20 years later people be like, yo, that's still my favorite album, or one of my favorite albums, or they put it in the category of their favorite albums, even though it wasn't a platinum album. You know what I mean?
It wasn't even like 1,000 copies sold. Like platinum, like. Nah, but you know what? You know what else though?
Yeah.
You know what else it is though, that I think the real reason why I wanted to do this is because I realized that the perspectives are very different. Like we all went through the same experiences, but we have very different perspectives on it. And more than anything, that's what I've learned. Like that's the jewels that I've been able to pick up is to finally hear what was going on through your guys' minds, like particularly North and Agony. You know what I mean? Like what was happening in your guys' minds when these different events were taking place. You feel me? Because like I definitely know what's going on through my mind, and I guess I could speak for Littles too. You know what I mean? We had like our side of the story. But yeah, man, it was always like this unspoken kind of mystery.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because it's true. Like, although, like, we, as close as we were, and as much as we were in connection with each other, and as much as we were working on things together, even when kind of that, the separation happened, as far as not for any riffs or anything, just, you and Littles were working on your project, and me and North started working on our stuff.
Right.
Whenever there were those issues, we always came together and spoke. But I think that this podcast brought out a different candidness about those situations.
I agree.
Word.
Because we were in the thick of it. So, like, even though, like, we would speak all the time, it's like you still, you had the North and Agony loyalty was first.
Yeah.
And it was the same for me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The loyalty was first to, like, the people you came up with.
Of course.
And then the crew, and that's just natural. So that's going to happen regardless. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's interesting, man, to hear, like, the different perspectives now.
Yeah, and I think back then conversations were still a little more quote unquote like political, and then I can see where, like, after we had our connection, we spoke about whatever was going on, I'm sure that, when you were leaving with Littles and I was leaving with North, then the real conversation was happening, and I think that throughout the course of this, those conversations that happened separately were brought to light during this process, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all had our agendas back then.
Yeah.
You know, like we've both kind of said it, you'd hear a certain pro beat and it's like you start scheming on it. You know what I'm saying? You're like, okay, I got to figure out a way to bring this one in my direction, which means that it's not going to go in their direction. So even though it's not a competition, it kind of is to a certain extent,
Yeah, bless his soul, man. I mean, we have to talk about it, even if it's, again, so to speak.
Yeah. So what happened is we recorded an episode prior to this, and for technical reasons, we're not going to be able to release that one. So we're trying our best to not recreate the conversation, but there are things that have happened since recording our last episode with Profile that we haven't talked about. So I guess that's the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah, because we definitely, I feel you where that there is that awkwardness right now where it's like I don't want to try to forcefully. The good thing is I haven't listened much to the last episode since I heard it the first time, just to kind of listen to it, right, to avoid anything in case we needed to do this, which we're doing, and let the conversation flow naturally. But I think the one topic of conversation that we can't just not let happen is the topic of pro.
Yeah.
And for us to be able to share kind of our sentiments and kind of how we were processing what's happening to that. And
right.
And
which is, if anyone doesn't know, it's
Exactly.
a pro passed away a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this was very shortly after we recorded the podcast episode with him, which obviously, we've said this before, right? But, how they say give people their flowers when they're alive.
Right.
That podcast episode, allowed us to do that.
Absolutely.
For pro,
Absolutely.
So, I'm thankful about that,
And, from my perspective, I didn't even, and I'm sure you guys kind of feel a little bit the same way. With that episode, I don't think we went into it with trying to give him flowers. We went into it with a curiosity of his story.
Of course.
Yes. Just like all the other episodes. Right. We went in there just to have another conversation with somebody we've known for, over a decade and who had an instrumental part in where we were as artists and as musicians.
Today,
and
to
this day, right.
And having no idea that he wouldn't be here a couple months after, you know what I mean?
To hear everything else, exactly.
Yeah.
But he and we know he appreciated it because I think that was the cool thing about the Profile episode is that it was the epiphany throughout. It was just it was very obvious at a certain point. We're just like, wait a minute, thank you, bro.
Well, I mean, even throughout the podcast,
it built up
since the first episode. We all know that this only happened because of pro. You know what I mean?
But to delve into how he even created it and how he thought of Common Ground, and just his mindset, and to be able to hear it because we all went through it and we never heard it. You know, we never heard that part.
Of course, that's the perspective. I'm sorry that we had never heard.
Yeah. And and we spoke about his at such a young age, his ability to orchestrate the things the way he did and bring the different personality types together to accomplish what essentially he was able to accomplish, because as we've mentioned, without him none of this would have ever happened. We might have had our own different paths of music because that's the path that we were on, but Common Ground is all pro. The name might have been given by somebody else, but the essence of what it is and how it became what it was because of pro's vision to be able to put something like that together, and I'm just happy that I nagged his ass enough to come on and do the recording, because he definitely was one that was really busy with work and with his music and with his family, where we always understood that we weren't necessarily priority number one anymore, but he took time out of that schedule to come and spend the night with us, and that's a recording that I'm going to treasure for a while. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that know him, that hopefully when they listen to that episode, it's a last piece of him that he left behind. That is one of the reasons why I'm really excited about about putting this out, not for views or for likes or for shares or for any of that shit, but for people to get to know the type of person that he was and what he was able to do and the genuine and humbleness of him as a person, you know?
Yeah, in his own words.
Yeah, because he was special. I know, you know, when people pass, you always get folks that want to say all these nice things, but you know, as we mentioned before, we said that to him while he was still around during that recording that we had. But Pro was a special person. You know, he was very humble, very direct, very open, very honest, very loyal, and you know, never, you know, for any his faults were no different from the average person, and it's a really shame what happened. And you know, my hairs stand up the second that we say his name, and it sucks that we never got to do more with him that we were hoping to do, you know, with some of the stuff that we're doing now. So
yeah, I mean, like, and that's for real with Pro. Is the thing about him coming back around is that, like you guys said, he never left. It was just always, he could hit you back, or he'll get back with you when he can. And for him to come out the crib and come, you know, be away, that was always a little bit more effort. But he was always in communication, always in conversation. I always sent him my mixes for all the Victor things, you know, the Victor tracks that I have, or the Friday vibe, and he was ready, you know, to do more work. It was just about putting it on the schedule and prioritizing what he had to do first. You know what I'm saying? For his family and for his business and for his job, like we all do, you know, and that's why we always understood each other.
Yeah.
You know, but we needed his, like, for me personally, like, I always needed his ear to, you know, stamp whatever I was working on.
And he always made himself available too, you know. If anything, the frequency of how much I would call him is what changed, because you know, he had a wife, a family, and you just kind of want to leave people alone at that point, you know what I'm saying? So like, I wouldn't even put it on him that we weren't really communicating that much. But that being said, like, one of the good things about social media is that I was in constant communication with Pro on social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though we may not have been texting as much as we used to or calling as much as we used to and shit, we were definitely always talking on social media. So.
Constant communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from my perspective, it's more along the lines of, like, you know, the conversations we had around like certain tracks that we would do, and he's like, oh, you should do something like this. It's like, well, why don't you jump on and put something together and help us out? You know, like, those are the type of things where I'm saying that, as far as like, it was kind of tough to kind of get on his calendar because he was busy doing his thing and whatever was gonna help him and his family first. You know, we always I never got mad at that. You know, even prior to that, he came to my poker night recently, which was another thing that I was really happy about, because I got to spend some just genuine time with him, just hanging out. He came and hung out with us and chilled, and you know, we had a few drinks, and it was, I'm really at peace with the fact that between seeing him that night and seeing him for the recording of the podcast, that, you know, when the events that took place happened, I couldn't bring myself to engage a little bit more during that day, and I didn't feel like I needed to, only because my most recent memories for me were enough, you know. And like I said, shout out to him and everything that he did for us, and
which is a lot, man.
Yeah,
like, honestly, dude.
I mean, we're still here, aren't we?
Yeah, and you know, it's like, I know eventually I would have picked up some of those things somehow along the road, but he, you know, put them in a nicely packaged fucking shape, you know what I mean? And it's like,
It was like Amazon, son.
like, yo, this is what you do, you know?
And not only that, like you said, to the package behind it, especially for the time in which we were doing things,
Unheard of.
you know, this isn't
There's very few people that can do that for you.
Yeah, this isn't like you know, I think I'm not sure at this point if we've even come across. I know everybody mentions it, but over the, you know, with technology these days, the things you can accomplish with just, you know, a few stacks, you couldn't even come close to that shit.
Yeah.
Back in those days, and Pro not only provided that opportunity and those venues to be able to get us in a position to be able to do what we wanted to do creatively, but the guidance, to your point, Shottie, that he gave us back then, to be able to help kind of mold us a little bit, to be able to feel the way that we feel, confident enough to be able to move on and do things that we ended up doing with his guidance. But, a lot of stuff without him is, just something that's just, you can't put even a dollar sign on it. I think I think without Pro, if we would have tried to accomplish what we did back then financially, I don't think any of us would have had the budget to be able to accomplish it.
We were kids.
And he never charged us a cent, at the most a Choco Taco from the vending machine. Wow.
We all get lunch, we all eat together, but
even
real.
beyond that, there was like a certain a work ethic that he kind of taught me. You know what I mean? Like when I met Pro, I was just a rapper that was just writing random verses. I'd never written a song. You know what I'm saying? Like Pro was the one that like really the reason I figured out how to be like result oriented in a way, like structure. How to structure and just like finishing a goal, which is like something that carried over to this day. You know what I mean? Now I start something, I have to finish it. And I could trace that all back to then, because it was the first time that there was like an urgency to the art. Because now like Pro's time is also on the line. Now it's not just me and Manny fucking around writing raps and freestyling. You know what I'm saying? Now Pro is giving us 3 hours. His time is also on the line, and like we don't want to be the chumps that go in the studio and don't finish the song. So it's like it gave us that work ethic that I think continued to like carry over into I think like all the things that I do now. The comic book, all my scripts and shit like that. It's like I learned that work ethic from working with Pro.
Yeah, and to that point, like he would say like, hey, I have a few hours available, and when things would stretch out or we wanted to get creative or whatever the case may be, he was never looking at his clock either on some like, hey, that's it, man. Like I gotta go.
Yeah, no.
Like if it pushed till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, sometimes like as tired as he was or whatever he had to do for the following day, like he was just as vested as us to be able to get that project accomplished. And
100%.
And he, through North's infinite takes or through mine and Sandro's infinite, thing to do something different with sound effects and mixes and extra layers and all this stuff that we would always throw this creative stuff at him, and sometimes out of left field stuff that he indulged us, and he never stopped it unless he felt some type of way creatively himself that was like, nah, dude, it's just not gonna work.
Creatively he'll stop you.
Yeah.
But like effort wise, and like I think we talked about it before, a producer who had to go behind the machine and change this plug for that plug for you to get an echo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And get a certain sound effect that just wasn't a plugin. And he would do that, and we would come up, as long as it was, dope, as long as the idea came out right, it was always on the table. Because even the ID4 shit was like different. The North and Agony shit was different. So he's running the table with both of y'all and both sides of the crew and being able to manage both of them.
And he produced us differently,
right?
Too,
yeah.
He produced you according to the
energy,
the act itself.
Yeah. And that's dope. And it was a training ground for him as well. And it's cool that his journey as a producer was so, built on the building blocks of ID4, North and Agony as MCs.
Well, that's something I learned in the episode, right? That those were his first beats.
Right.
Yeah.
He said that in the episode, right?
The first time he recorded.
Those were like his first beats, his first songs. I didn't know.
First songs.
I thought he'd been doing it for a while.
Had a cruise, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. So that's something I definitely learned, man.
Yeah, man. It was just I'm telling you, my only regret is that, like, for example, I know during the viewing and everything, Juanqui was telling me that he has some pro beats, and I told him, I was like, look, if you have any that haven't been used, he had mentioned that he was gonna do something for us, shoot them our way, and let's see if we jump on something, and whether that happens or not, it's still gonna be a regret of mine, only because it's not something that he's done with us in mind. You know, and I was really looking forward to having that one more track with, just trying to pull that one more track out of him,
with all of us,
and pull one more verse out of Littles, and try to get North, reeled in, and just really try to get that to happen. Yeah. it's
trying to get me reeled in at this point too.
yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's I think out of all of us, I think that you're probably, well, not even, I don't even know who's, Littles is probably the most difficult one to probably get something out of right now. And
You just got something out of me, so
yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, that's why I just put you in a different light. Like, you know, it's been a little tough to get stuff from these days, but
yeah.
but I think if Pro had reached out and said, look, here's 3 tracks,
Yeah.
pick one, I really think that it just would have been easy for the 4 of us to get together and do something fresh.
Right.
And I just, it's a shame that didn't happen, you know. And I mean, it is what it is. You know, we have the memories, and
at least we have a lot of pro tracks. Like we did a lot of pro tracks, so that's the good part. Like we do have the other memories of getting something that was specific for Shottie or Agony or ID4 or whoever, and knowing that Pro was like, yeah, nah, I got you.
Yeah, and like my memories are more about the journey than like the tracks themselves, you know what I mean?
Right.
My memories of Pro are being in the studio, messing around nonstop, you know, making people cry, leave the studio like all pissed off because we were ranking on them and shit.
yeah, but that's the thing. The tracks remind you of the process, you know. So when I listen to the songs, I'm not just hearing, oh, that's a tight beat, that's a tight verse. It takes me back to the day where we were doing it and the things that were happening at that time, you know. And that's I think one of the beauties of, unfortunately, we've had to go through this, not just with him, but a few other people that we've worked with when it comes to music. And if there's any beauty in the path that we've taken in our lives, is the fact that we always have that to go back to, you know. I still have some old Pro beats that I've even been tempted to jump on just because we never did anything to them. And I'm talking about some old Pro stuff, you know, that I listen to, and I'm like, that's still not bad, you know. And I'm pretty sure if I put something to it, it might be pretty dope.
The early like MIDI shit.
Yeah, you know. You know, and then like just in general, you know, you listen to stuff like with Pipes and with Cash and with Rendini and Mike Rip, like it's you know, the fact that we have these tracks that we can go back to be able to keep certain spirits alive and go back, not like, again, not just to the song, but to the process behind it. You think about the days where you were sitting down and putting the verse together, or how we came up with the hook and how we came up with the vibe and the actual session itself and the things that went down. And for some of these, we were lucky enough to actually film it. And we have, you know, the actual video footage of it to be able to go back and look at it and see the frustration points behind certain things that you might not have remembered, or the, you know, the funny moments that took place that you might not have remembered. It's, you know, I really love the fact that we've done things like this that we can go back to and keep those memories, because some of them are just, you look at it and you're like, you know, I forgot, you know, even the mini disc recordings that I've come across where it's just audio of us in a car. And I was listening to one the other day that I was going through my mini discs and trying to dump them into Pro Tools to be able to upload them into my Google account, just so that way they're off the disc and somewhere where I can listen to them. And I came across these, you know, conversations that we found that were like pre us doing podcasts and stuff, that I was like, well, I want to listen to this later, so I'm going to record this shit, you know. Or just us in the car just eating shit and stumbling across how we came up with the hook for 305 niggas, and you know, and seeing like, shit, I forgot how much Dro had input on that shit, you know. And it's a blessed thing to be able to do, because prior to that, I mean, we go back to those days, there was no IG, there was no Facebook, you know. It wasn't until much later that MySpace even came around.
Cell phones alone, just recording everything wasn't even
exactly
an option.
even ourselves at that point.
Cell phones weren't even a thing, man. I think we all had beepers still back then, right?
For real.
Yeah, not even when they did come out, the most you could do on your phone was play Snake.
Yeah, you only could call after 7.
Yeah.
If you had the good plan.
Yeah, right.
Like,
call me back in 30 minutes.
you spend that 1 minute of free time, right? You just tell them real quick, all right, is it important? Or you can call me after 7.
Right.
Or after 9 or whatever it was. But yeah, now we couldn't record each other. We couldn't, you know, have, like, we did it for shows. That was different. But like just the interaction, the natural interaction we had, it's cool to have those tracks to really be thrown in a time machine.
Yeah.
like 100%.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I stumbled across that mic rip freestyle that he did in my back of my mom's house, making the beat on the sliding glass door. That I recorded that on. I don't even know what to call it, but those little tapes that you would put in the little recorder that people would take like to college to record the
those little cassette tapes, those like mini cassettes,
mini things like the little joint that would jump out of the transformer, like that.
The answering machine joint.
Yeah, like the tiny,
answering machine one.
Tiny shit that you would use to record back then. And I had the tape, and my brother happened to have the actual player, and I found it, and I was able to grab that back, and hear that moment, and when I'm listening to it, I remember being there and being just amazed at the fact that, because at that point, I had seen many people freestyle. I had kicked many of my own. I'd never seen anybody make the beat while they were freestyling and give themselves their own breaks and everything like that. And it was, to me, it was phenomenal.
Miss you, cuz.
I was totally starstruck while I was watching that, and to be able to hear that. And it's not even the whole thing. I think he was going for a minute, and I managed to run inside and grab it and just say, I have to record this shit. Like, I have to be able to listen to this later. This is fucking amazing. And so when you hear it, it starts off in the middle, and
I gotta hear that,
dude. I
gotta hear that.
I might have it on my phone.
We should put it out on this podcast.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, it's things like that just I love the fact that we do music.
No, you're right. We have like crystallized memories.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I can like track, a lot of my adult life through the music. Like, okay, this is when I was working on the Faux Show Volume 1. This is, like, you know what I'm saying? I was doing DeLorean this year. That was the Life After Love years. Those were a little harder, a little darker. Yeah.
Like, it's a real diary of your...
No, it really is. It really
your
is.
life. And it's an audio diary with rhythm and creativity.
And real feelings, like real emotions.
Yeah, because we got into that pretty early. Like, we were, like, you guys were part of the hip-hop, style that was, like, honest. And, like, if there was something real going on in your life, you would talk about it in your rap, but just be creative about it. You would have both options. It wouldn't be every track, but, like, you had that ability to tap into, what's the joint I'm thinking about with you and Littles?
The Suicide Letter? The one that I had, that my whole verse is a Suicide Letter?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Cheap Wine?
Cheap Wine Confessions. Cheap Wine Confessions.
Yeah,
I remember that was the one with your sister on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that we were dying to get her on something else. He's like, nah, she ain't doing another track.
She was singing, yeah.
You got her on something. What you mean?
Yeah,
No,
but at the time...
I don't think I did. I think North got her on a song. I
Yeah,
don't think
the one that Pro produced.
I don't think that...
Pro produced track.
That she had the North and Agony song.
Okay.
But maybe not North and Agony. But yeah, Cheap Wine Confessions is a prime example of being able to tap into an inner monologue, an inner thought. And you guys were doing that that was like your first couple tracks. That wasn't even...
That was like one of the first tracks I ever wrote. It was like the fourth track I ever wrote.
Yeah, but it's crazy because we've recorded so much and the gaps have been pretty big that it's weird that I listen to some of the old songs, and for my taste, right, the ones that I think that I've done the best in as an artist is when my life has been the shittiest, right? I feel like that's when I've been able to really just give myself away almost on songs and come up with concepts and verses outside of the quote unquote party / club bullshit, right? And I do mean that as bullshit because those are fuck around tracks for us.
You're talking about like the real life shit.
Yeah.
When happiness doesn't produce art. Doesn't produce great art.
I'm talking about like things like that. The track that we did with I can't believe it's fucking slipping me right now, but 3Bs is one that I think is dope. The joint with Rendini that we did is phenomenal. That's, to me, it's a classic. Like all these things that when you listen to them, people are like, yo, that shit is fire. I'm like, if you only knew, what I was going through at that point,
right?
That was a release for me. And it's funny because as I still try to stay quote unquote relevant, or at least try to stay consistent with the art itself, when I'm sitting down now to write verses, sometimes it's tough because, like, thank God, I'm not really stressed about anything outside of the normal stuff. Like I got to pay my bills. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
you know, my kids giving me shit. You know, that type of stuff. But you know, back then, small things made a lot. Like back then, I didn't know how I was gonna pay my bills. Like I wasn't sure, you know, how the fuck I was gonna pay my car note when I had, you know, repo people calling me and harass me about stuff. I'm reaching out to Cash, who out of all people was always asking me for money, for him to talk to his girl at the time, who's a fucking dancer at some place, to lend me money so I can pay my car note to then pay her back. You know, bullshit that I'm going through with certain people I was in a relationship with at that time. And, you know, all this madness and stuff of trying to make it on my own, because I had left my mom's crib and I'm staying in certain places that I'm just trying to make ends meet. And when you're in that grind, it almost feels like it's easier to just write certain types of verses that just come out of you just easily. Whereas now it's like, it's almost a more of a creative process to say, all right, I have to put myself in this mind frame.
You have to reach. You have to reach for those feelings.
Exactly.
Like before, they were like readily available to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think there's something to that. I think like great art is produced by despair, right?
Yeah.
Like the guy who wrote Taxi Driver. You've seen Taxi Driver?
Yeah.
So that's a movie like about loneliness, right? The guy Paul Schrader that wrote it was in a really bad place in his life. His fucking, I think his ex had left town for a little while, and she was letting him stay in the apartment till she got back, which was like a couple weeks. This dude sat there in that apartment with a loaded gun and a bottle of scotch, and banged out that screenplay in like 2 weeks, bro. Wow. And it's like one of the greatest movies ever. But he was like in a place of desperation. He was homeless, staying in his girl's crib for 2 weeks, didn't know what he was gonna do. And he wrote one of the greatest movies of all time. You know?
Nah, that pressure is for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, makes that diamond sometimes. Yeah. And gives you that product that's awesome.
If you know how to harness it.
Yeah.
And I think that's
exactly
the great gift I think that we've been given. You know what I mean? That like we can take those feelings and turn them into something. Whereas, you know, other people might turn it into something negative.
Yeah. But that's a good point, because one of the things that I always talk about, like when I talk to my family about pro and like common ground and music, like I really truly believe, not that everybody was in crazy trouble, but it's like it kept you off the streets. You know what I mean? It kept you productive on a Tuesday night, where you look at other people who weren't applying themselves, or how easy it is to get caught up in not doing anything. Like, it was always a good motivation. It was like a reward. Like, you were working all week, making sure everything was like in order so that you can make it to the studio that week. And that's what I learned from you guys, because you guys, I didn't see you guys take that shit for granted. There was a lot of fucking around nights, but it wasn't like take it for granted. It was all right, we'll stop now. Let's go to work. You know, like I get to that point. But I didn't think you guys like took it frivolously. And I learned that early. And I was like, this is really something to appreciate. You know, that we have this opportunity. I didn't look at it from my age now. I was just hanging out and having fun and making music and shit. But now that I look back, I'm like, damn, I could have been doing some other crazy shit. Yeah. All of us could have been, you know?
And there's something to what you're saying, right? Because, like, you know, because of the music, all these fucking knuckleheaded ass, no direction having ass dudes, you know, were able to like actually focus on a task and like work at it, you know, even though we were in the studio fucking around and everything. Like the fact that we were in there actually trying to create something when nobody was forcing us to be there was, you know, of our own doing. That's impressive, man. You know?
And it wasn't, and to your point, it was more than just that moment. It was a building block for what we were trying to accomplish, because even with the CG album, once it was done, the point was to get that accomplished so we can put in a certain order and put the CD together and start pressing the CDs and go out and promote it and try to do these shows and do everything, and then on to the next project, right? Like to get these mixtapes done or to get these albums done and to press them and go out there, and then, you know, upscaling from going CD by CD in a computer to purchasing equipment to be able to try to do more than just one at a time, and being able to be more efficient with the process. And to your point, Shai, like it's even now, like, you know, with the stuff you've got going on, where you started, you know, you've started something with the podcast, and you've gotten to a point where you've said, you know what, if I'm going to keep doing this, I want to keep doing it right. And you've purchased certain equipment to do things the right way and to make your life easier and to make it sound more official. you know, it's carried over into
carried over big time
to things that we've done, where it was even when I said, you know what, I'm going to take a break away from music and I'm going to take my ass back to school, then that became my focus. Like, you know, I was already trained to be able to make something else outside of the normal life my focus. So when people sit there and say, well, how the hell did you manage a family with 3 kids and a wife and house and bills and basketball practice and football practice and at the same time go and get a bachelor's degree? It was like, well, no different from the way I was doing shit before, which is I did everything I had to do, and then I sacrificed my own sleep basically to say, you know, at certain hours, that's it. Like, I was going to focus on this and I was going to work on that and get this shit done. And that's what I was able to do. And it's all those years of training that helped me be able to do the things that I do now, where I can have so many things going on. Like, I always say that life is all about plates spinning, right? If you ever seen somebody spinning the plates like that trick, they're on sticks and they're spinning and spinning and spinning. There's only but so many they can spin until some start to fall. I always feel that different people have a certain amount of plates they can spin. Right. And I feel that due to the nature of the way we grew up and the shit that we were doing, I could spin more plates than most motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, the motherfucker.
Yeah, bars.
It's true. Yeah, no, for real. No, that's what happens. And the problem is when people look at you spinning so many plates and you're like, oh, that looks easy. Like, nah, man, hold on.
No, it's not. You know,
it's not easy.
It was even today. Like I'm having a walk around the lake with my wife, just trying to stay fucking fit, and she's talking about how she has to get herself in order and all these other things and be more, you know, structured and plan ahead. And I'm like, yeah, you do, you know, and I'm sitting there behind you, you know, 2 weeks in advance telling you got shit you need to get done. And she waits till the last minute sometimes because she's like, you know, I have this and that. And I'm thinking in my back of my mind, I'm like, that's easy, you know,
because you spinning those plates already.
So it's different though. Like a lot of things that she's doing right now is kind of new for her to have that many big things going on, you know, like there's certain things she's trying to accomplish in her life at this point that's outside of the norm. And for us, we've always tackled big things, and not just one but multiple things at the same time for so many years that I guess, from my opinion, it doesn't seem as difficult to the average person because it's something we've been doing since we were 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and those skills that I learned through the whole like rap experience too, like have carried over into my work that I do for a living. You know what I mean? Like, I work in digital marketing. I'm the digital marketing manager at the company. How the fuck do I know anything about digital marketing? From fucking pushing rap albums for 10 years, bro. Doing independent rap shit, dude. Like, you know what I mean? I actually, you know, leveraged that into an actual job. You feel me? So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, how those skills carry over, dude.
Yeah, and not only that, you take it past that, like the ability to go into a workplace and collaborate with people and be open to other ideas and find a quote unquote common ground to be able to move forward in a certain direction, to be able to get things done.
Bars.
You know, it's all from the fucking music, because we sat there and was like, oh, we should do this. Like, nah, I think we should do that. Well, at the end of the day, we had to decide to do something, right?
Yeah.
And the fun part about the music is that we say, at least the way we do stuff is record everything. And then when it comes time to the mix, though, that's when you got to make those hard decisions. And when you make those hard decisions, you know, for some people, it's like, damn, I really wish we would have had that in there. But if your idea wasn't the one that was the top favorite and everybody else had a different consensus, you had to live with it, you know? And sometimes
that teaches you something.
Right now with the track that we had 2 different bass lines that were going on. I told you which one was my preference. You told me that everybody else was feeling the other one. And I said, well, whatever the consensus is, that's the one we're going to move with. I'm not going to sit there and fight and pout and hold back, you know, the project because I feel one way about something. And all that comes from those years of not taking things personally and just knowing that you can give your opinion, you can give your advice.
Right.
But when you're dealing with, if you're not the executive producer and you don't have the final say, then you need to know that once you've stated your opinion, if it goes in a different direction, that's the way shit happens, you know? And that happens everywhere in life. So going back to the point, sometimes at work when we're doing things, it's like, I don't think it should be done that way. But when the boss says, well, you know, I'm going to go this route instead, okay, that's what you get paid for, you know, and that's what you're going to do. Right. You know, and if it turns out that it was a shitty decision, I can always say I told you so, but that's a different story, right?
You're going to say that out loud. Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, it also makes you a self-starter too, man.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like no one else is waiting on these projects that we're making except us. So like we're literally, making something out of nothing. So it teaches you those skills to be able to, like start, to be able to motivate yourself enough to start a project,
Yeah, and that's a very valid point because we're not talking about the fact that we have record labels pressing on us saying that, hey, you're on a contract to get
Right.
8 albums done by 2025.
We held ourselves accountable. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was no outside influence, there was no contracts, there was no money. It was just what we put ourselves in our minds to do and get accomplished, that we were able to do the things that we've done over the course of meeting up and doing everything that we did.
How many tracks do you think you guys did?
With like a number?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like,
Yeah, tracks, like music, like
how many like songs have I done in my life?
yeah, like like starting with Pro through Yesterday, like
Hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
I don't think it
so
goes
like
into the thousands.
collectively about 1,000.
No, I don't think. At least I
Between
don't.
all of us? I don't know, because Manny's done like 20. I've done a lot more than that.
Yeah, no. I think from our end, I know
Manny drops the average a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
it's in the hundreds. And if you count,
If we're
North's-
counting Flex, if we're counting Salazar, then we're in the thousands for sure. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
and if you count North's one verse with a hook only, we're definitely in the
Oh,
thousands.
those? Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've
He's
heard a
got
lot of
plenty
those.
of those
Is
where
that-
he's like, "Yo, check this new shit out," and I listen to it, and I hear the verse, I hear the hook, and there's nothing else. I'm like, "That's dope." He never did anything else.
You should have just structured the track that way. But isn't that crazy? Over 1,000 songs, realistically, even if you released it or close to it, after like all those years, like close to 1,000 songs. It has to be in the high hundreds.
Someone knock? Did you hear
I
something?
heard
something fell.
and I looked at my foot, but I didn't hit anything.
I didn't move.
Let me go check on Charlie.
All right.
It was like
Uh-oh.
like a Ouija board. Like nobody touched anything, right?
Nobody even breathed.
Did the dog escape?
Charlie's like playing Nintendo. Charlie's on a PlayStation.
He's actually pretty quiet. He's probably getting used to the fact that people over here doing shit.
Nah, he was.
I guess this is a good time to check my phone since I have it on silent. Make sure that nothing crazy has happened.
How you doing, buddy?
Are we friends today, Chuck? Hey, Chuck. How are you? Yeah, it's me. I appreciate you not barking at me. Oh. Who you barking at? The black man or me? Is he racist?
Charlie's definitely a little racist.
He let me pet him today. That's new.
Did you notice at what time I stopped it? Was it like 2 minutes ago?
Oh, I don't know.
No, it wasn't that long.
All right.
It's all good.
You can just mark it.
Do a little marker here.
Yeah.
And we're back. Took a little Charlie break real quick.
Professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is crazy though when I look at it, cause just all the music, all the art, all the movies, comic books, cause pictures that you guys edit, photo shoots, ideas that you've like been able to formulate, like it all started somewhere.
Right.
And like to take the journey and like really revisit it with each other to hear each other's, own perspective.
Yeah.
Not what somebody said or heard. Like for real. That was pretty cool, man.
You know what else I think also transpired from this process of us doing this music stuff and just in the world in which we've done it is and for me at least, and I still live by this, which is sometimes the friction I have with some of the things that we've been doing to this day is the fact of, it's this need to keep things in house or do things ourselves, right? Whether it started with us having the need to be able to record ourselves and then being able to mix things ourselves and be able to edit things ourselves and be able to shoot our own, photos and even now, like, album covers or artwork or even videos for that matter. Like, it's
everything.
It's as much as it's not like you have these different venues that allow you to do things at an affordable level, quote unquote, and we technically have the money we can put in to do things. Like, even when we're doing stuff, like Dro even recently reached out to me. He's like, look, so and so, we're willing to put in a X amount of money and get some things done. And I'm just like, why can't we just do that shit ourselves? Like, let's just rent the camera, right. And if we need that type of quality and it's going to be cheaper for us to just do it ourselves. And I don't know if that's necessarily a need to just want to keep it in house versus also this hunger of my own to always be creative in something different, right? So I've dabbled in, like, at the end of the day, like we've mentioned that I've made beats. I don't call myself a producer. I've taken pictures. I don't call myself a photographer. I've made album covers. I don't call myself a graphic artist. I do call myself an MC. To me, that's my forte. Like, if anybody asks, like, what I could fucking rap, right? Like that I will stand proud and say. Everything else, like, I might make a few beats, and out of 10, I might have 2 or 3 that are fucking dope enough that I feel that we can jump on and do some shit. But I always feel this need to try something different, and especially since maybe if we were blessed enough to have more of a quote unquote following or more fans or more stuff, then maybe there'd be something to say, what, let's make this more official, because once we put this out, we got 1 million people that are going to be looking at this. When you're looking at maybe a couple hundred people, it's like,
nah, we're going to get more than a couple.
It's like, why can't we just keep this shit in house? And it gives, and I always have this need to just go in and do things myself. And that's also,
I think it's more about that for me, though. Like, if I've always wanted to keep things in house, it's because it's more for quality control.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and to make sure that my vision is gonna get across. And if it doesn't, it's my fault. It's not someone else's fault.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It's no different from when I do things in my house. If I'm doing my own drywalling or my own tiling or any of this other stuff, I'm willing to live with my imperfections.
Right.
Now, if I'm paying somebody to do this shit
better be perfect.
That shit better be perfect.
That's straight
you
up.
do this shit for a living, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How the fuck is the tile uneven? I should be able to run a quarter across my floor and that shit not stop at all. And
welcome to the Drywalling Podcast with Daniel McGow.
I'm surprised you even know my fucking name. That's pretty dope.
I follow you on Facebook.
Also.
So, but yeah, it's always this drive of mine to be able to say, because at the end of the day, like, we've done so much so well, even though it hasn't reached a capacity that I feel that it could have reached, that I have confidence in our abilities to be able to put things together. Because I think that it's one thing if I would say, well, I was doing this myself, but if I'm doing it myself and I say, yo, Dro, check this shit out, Shottie, check this shit out, what do you think? Oh, maybe you should try this, or maybe you should try that, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that.
Oh, the shit is dope.
I think at the end of the day, if we're all going to sit there and say, yo, that shit's dope,
yeah,
then it's fucking dope.
Yeah.
No different from anything else we've done. Like, if somebody's dropped some tracks, like, there's music that I've done that I don't like, Dro's like, nah, that shit's dope. And I'm like, it's whack. If it's not a consensus, it's whack. Yeah. So, I think that we're all very capable
very
of doing
honest.
Things that we do, and we've been honest in each other's.
Honest.
There's no yes men in this crew. And I think that's what also has helped us to get to where we're at today. Like,
that's very true.
Like, I've never sat there and even with Shottie stuff that he's done with his comic books and with his films and everything, if I've had any things that I've needed to say, I've shared it with him personally. I'm not the asshole that jumps online and be like, hey, you know what? Because I think that's just bad form.
There was a fucking plot hole, man.
But there's, I've always given that criticism of, do you want like an outside perspective of stuff, which for the most part it's dope, or do you want my perspective? And these are the things that kind of raise my eyebrow.
Yeah, there's only a few people that I share my scripts with. So if I share it with you, it's because I want your definitely because I'm looking for an opinion. You know what I mean?
And that's why I think
honest opinion.
I'm looking for feedback. Yeah.
That's why when Littles and Shot were talking about when they would push shit out in the beginning, that they wouldn't tell people it was them. I always felt that was a good approach, only because of the fact that when you tell people, hey, listen to what I did, it automatically opens that window to say, I want your personal opinion. And then all of a sudden, everybody becomes a critic, everybody becomes a musician, everybody becomes a graphic artist, everybody becomes an MC. All of a sudden, it's a different era, right?
Or they'll
Everybody's a
just
critic.
tell you it's good because they don't have the balls to tell you they don't like it.
Exactly.
So
that
you're
as
not going
well.
to get an honest opinion too. That's why we wanted to do it. Like I really wanted to measure if it was good or not. And if I said it was me, and it's someone I know, it's like my friend, they're gonna tell me it's good. You know what I'm saying? Like most likely, yeah, bro, that's dope. It's dope, even though it might be whack. You know what I'm saying? So I was looking for an honest assessment with no like emotional connection. You
Correct.
know, like,
And
this is just some guy.
And that's one thing that I think internally we all gave each other. I don't think there was ever anything that, you know, I've shared my sentiments with you, Shottie, about how I feel about you and your music, and it's not because I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything. Because if there's certain things that that I didn't think were cool
by now, right?
Especially if we were doing a track together,
Right.
you know, that's something that I'm putting my name on. I'm not going to sit there and say that it's good or if it's not.
Yeah,
Again,
we're not
honest-
gonna accept some whack shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like we wouldn't do that. Yeah.
And that extended beyond just the work that we did together. That also extended to the stuff that you did just on your own with Littles. When I
Right.
would hear stuff, if you ever reached out and like, hey, what did you think? You know, I'd be honest. I'd be like, yo, these are the tracks that I like. The other
Right.
ones, you know, they're tight. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, the dope shit is that at the end of the day, I think whenever we decided to put something out, in my opinion, the project always had either good tracks and phenomenal tracks, right? Like stuff that people would
A's
really,
and B's.
yeah, exactly,
A's and A pluses.
exactly. No, I think A's and B's and maybe 1 or 2 A pluses depending on what your flavor was.
Couple
because-
C's too, man. There's a couple, bro. Like I've done,
think so?
I got some D's, bro.
And but no, hold up, because you have D's in what you've pushed out.
I think so, man.
You do?
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
I don't think my shit's
don't know.
perfect, man.
Because I never released anything that I was uncomfortable with. Like I have
No,
a
me
few
neither.
songs then.
Me neither. It's more in going back and going back and like.
But you're harder on your hindsight than I am. Like I've like even with what we're working on right now, there's you know, there was that one song you and I were talking about that you're like, I don't know, you know,
Because it's old.
yeah, you know, but you know, after that conversation you and I had, I listened to that song at least 10 times in a row. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's
I'm
a
trying to
big-
hear it. Hold on, one more time.
I hate all my shit.
Hold on, one more
honestly.
time.
You know, that's a personal
After
thing that
number
he's
9,
feeling, but
I
I'm
still don't
listening to
hear
it.
it.
I listen to it just as a song. I'm like, all right, as a song, it sounds good. I listen to it just to him, and I'm like, all right. And I get that it's older. I'm like, I'm listening to his flow. I'm listening to his wordplay. I'm listening to his content. And his content was the only qualm that I had. I was like, look, there's this line that you say that kind of dates the track, or you. He's like,
David Stern.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not my beef with it. I'm like, all right, if that's not your beef with it, then I have no beef with the track. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the only reason why. If you would say, I don't want to release it because it dates it, then I respect that. But he was like, well, it's up to you. And if it's up to me, then it's going on the fucking project, you know?
It's your track.
It's a dope-ass track at that. It's got a really dope
One of my
vibe.
favorite songs.
It's a really dope vibe. A really
The
dope
hook is
vibe.
dope. The hook is dope. Yeah.
It's a really dope vibe.
And that's funny because I think Pro, like you guys said, Pro kind of facilitated that from the beginning. Because even for somebody like me who wasn't writing or producing, for me, like to sit down and get those edits in and to get those ideas in, like he was open-minded, you know, and he wanted to have a dope product, and he was willing to hear the product before he judged it, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that even the way I make music is something I appreciate, just like to hear the idea. Like the idea can get shot down. That's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that's like jumping off of what Agony was saying too.
Yeah.
Like it taught me how to be thick-skinned too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could throw ideas around at work. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Like my feelings won't get hurt. You know, like when you're making music, man, dude.
Talk about it.
You know, it's hard to connect with music, bro. Like you know, to really really connect with music.
But one of the beauties of it also is because, and you've been able to, like Littles wasn't able to accomplish this. North was able to do this at least once, as far as a project goes. But that's also one of the beauties of stepping away from everything that we've done and working on a solo project, that you really get to explore yourself as an artist, right? You really get to try things that you sometimes wouldn't try, because it's like, at least, again, speaking from my perspective, I'm like, well, North's going to jump on this. I kind of know where he's going to come from. Shottie's going to jump on this. I kind of know how he's going to come. I can't go too far off the rails because I want to make sure I blend and not stand too far out. And this may be too outlandish. You don't. Like, I would never sit there and say. Sometimes I get some ideas. I'm like, it's a little too much. Let me just stick more with the status quo. Versus when I was working on my solo stuff, it was like, fuck it. If it comes out and it comes out dope, then it's dope. And if it's whack, then I just won't put it on the project. You know what I'm saying? And it really let me explore myself as an artist creatively that I didn't get when I was working on the collaborative stuff.
That's the stuff I'm not cringy about, my solo stuff. Because it was like, that's when I really started making the music that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And that's no knock on like to anybody really. It's just like, you have to come to a level of compromise when you're doing collaborations, you know what I mean? And
whether you think of it or not, innately, it's just in you to know that if you know the people you're working with, then you, like I said, you already have an idea of what is going to come to the table, and you're like, all right, I need to make sure that I spit a certain type of way, and honestly,
it's got to be something they like too.
Yeah,
and like if we're trying to,
it's got to be correct.
If we need to agree on the beat, that's a whole creative process that you're like potentially cutting out. You know what I mean? Because like picking that right beat that's just right for you, that might not be right for the other guy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a totally separate component. You're absolutely right. Yeah. When you sit there and you're going through 18, 19, 20, 30 fucking beats on a CD, and you finally decide, all right, this is the one. That's the one that everybody decided on. There might have been 2 or 3 where you're like, I would have murdered that other shit.
Right. Yeah. And subject matter too.
Yep.
Like if I just broke up with my girl and my partner didn't, is still with his girl, and I'm gonna make a song about it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's weird. You know what I mean?
And what's funny? Because to your point, there's this one song that North and I never finished, and we were at his crib, and we were doing some stuff, and I was in a certain mood that night, right? And because of that fact, like what was coming out of me was very personal, and to me, I came up with the hook, I came up with the verse, and to me, it was phenomenal. I was like, yo, this is dope. You know what I'm saying? But he never felt it, and he never felt that because he wasn't in the position I was in.
He wasn't going through it. Right? Yeah.
For him, going back to what we were saying before, he would have had to reach for those type of emotions or that type of scenario to get creative and write a certain type of verse.
Right.
And he was hearing something totally different to the track. For him, it was more of a nice vibe, good vibe, and for me, it was something totally different. It was much more darker. Yeah. And yeah, and those are the type of things that sometimes they don't come to fruition because of those differences in what's going on at the moment. And
yeah, when you work on your solo project, you don't have to worry about any of that.
And even when once you're past picking the beat and writing it, even when you're recording it and it's like no one there but you, or maybe you and an engineer, but most of the time when I'm recording my solo shit, I was by myself. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You allow yourself. Well, I mean, until I moved to New York, obviously, I was recording with Sev in New York. But all like DeLorean, I did most of it here at the crib.
Dope. I did not know that.
Yeah. So what I was saying though, like you'll try shit in the recording process that you won't try when your homies around because you don't want to look like a fucking asshole. You know what I'm saying? I'm over here singing high notes and shit. I wouldn't have done that if the homies were sitting on a couch, bro. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have recorded Life After Love. Right. Yo, hold on. Let me hit these high notes real quick. Let me hit this high C right now.
Let me clear it. Like, hold on. Let me.
Right. No. Nah, B. But yeah, man.
I'm going to layer it. And sound good later.
You allow yourself to try things and to like really explore,
Yeah.
when you do your solo shit.
Yeah,
so that's the stuff that I can still listen to and I'm okay with. Because again, it's like I made all the decisions on it and I live and die by it, But it's me. Those songs are me.
Let me ask you this real quick on the Common Ground story side. What's one of your favorite memories like that stands out from the CG, hanging out with the crew, making music?
That's an easy one, bro. North's car the meeting when we got pulled over and we ended up getting escorted to the meeting. That was by far the best memory, I think. You know?
That's a dope one.
There were other ones, like all other like smaller ones, but you know, if this were a movie, that's the scene right there. You know what I'm saying? That's where we get the trailer from and shit. It's from that movie, from that scene.
And when you asked the question, for me it was the chili pepper, the first one that jumped to my mind. Like I said, that being our first CG performance, and the crowd response the way it was, and people asking for autographs, and the vibe when we were performing. It really, it teased me and it spoiled me because I thought that that's what was coming, right?
All the way up next.
And I'm like, if this is what we're getting now,
Shottie.
like that's it, we're on our way, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't the case. And what's sad is that wasn't even a hip hop crowd. Like if you listen to the episode, we talk about the type of crowd that was, and it was not a hip hop crowd. We were opening up for a totally different type of music. And it was one of the best responses we ever received from a crowd. But to me, that moment of the four of us getting together on stage and doing that, and the promotional aspect behind it, of the minds coming together, what we were gonna do and how we were gonna pass things out, and things that were gonna happen, I was like, oh, that's it. Like we're on our way. If I'm being asked for autographs right now, like it's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? And then there was a wake up call, you know, coming up for everything else past that. But that particular moment, like that performance for me, is one that stays in my mind. That's probably, which oddly enough is one of the, you know, because we've had other performances that we've done that's been our people that we've promoted, and we've gotten our people out there, and they like our stuff, so the response is different. But
that was a completely
random
foreign, that was
people
a completely
that have
foreign
no
crowd.
idea who the fuck that we are.
Yeah.
Like everybody else that I performed for, like I always said, they're like zombies, right? Like they're not vibing, they're not walking away. You know, they kind of just stuck there in the middle, like
doing that like cool Miami shit. Like you can't be too
dude.
excited because you're too fucking cool.
No, look, there was a performance. I don't know if we spoke about it yet, but there was a performance North and I did in Tallahassee where people were literally walking out on people to another room that was in the club, right? Even on some chick that came up and did some spoken word shit, they ran away on her. And when North and I performed, everybody stayed.
Right.
Nobody was like throwing their hands up. Nobody was really vibing except for a couple people here and there.
One or two people in
but
the front.
Nobody
really
walked out.
That was a small victory. Yeah.
To me, that was huge. Not a small victory. That was huge. Because not for nothing, like, you know, it's a college crowd. It's in Tallahassee. In my opinion, you got somebody's out there doing spoken word. There's a certain respect you give to people that are doing like some spoken word shit, right? Like, all right, this can't take too long. Let me hear what the fuck you got to say. And they ran out on this person, and then the DJ cut this person's mic, turned the music back on, and everybody ran back in like, yeah. And I'm like, fuck, you know? And then me going out there, as white as I am, hair slicked to the back because it was longer, a fucking nylon or some shit, fucking polyester dragon shirt, fucking bullshit.
That was your go-to performance shirt. Yeah.
And North with his fucking braids, and Sandro in the middle, Superman in the middle. And I think, I don't know if the first one we did was Shaking. After that, we're like, you know, doing our track, You Want Some Pussy Tonight? Pussy. You know, we're like, how many of y'all like pussy? And nobody says shit. And I'm like, damn, it was a tough crowd. But anyways, they didn't walk out. I was like, yo, that's like...
Not even the pussy? Like, not even pussy? Y'all don't even like pussy? Damn, bro.
That's like, to me, that was the equivalent of saying, you know, that's like if I went to the Apollo and I didn't get booed, like I did good.
You did good, yeah.
You know?
We got no claps.
Sandman.
We got no claps.
No Sandman, though.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like, and...
You know what I remember, man, which is another lesson I learned, was one of the first shows we did together, man. I learned always be aware of the mic cord. Because I fucking dropped the mic once because I stepped on the cord. Do you remember this, man?
No, I don't.
I dropped the mic once. We were doing a Realize or something. Because I stepped on the cord, then I picked it up, and I dropped it again. It's on video, dude.
For real.
You don't remember this?
But
Yeah.
that's where you learn how to carry the mic with two hands.
I dropped the mic twice. And it's like, one of you guys are doing your verse, and it's like in the background and shit. You see me just picking up the mic and then dropping it again. So I always, either go cordless or always make sure you know where the cord is, because I just kept stepping on it. You feel me?
Let me tell you, it's because of that performance that I always, and again, it's just the nostalgia in me. Like, especially now you have this, Spider-Man Into the Universe. I always think of these alternate realities, right? And
alternate realities, man.
Yeah, and I always think about the whole fact of, like, I wonder what would have happened if we never split our ways, like if we would have stayed just like the four of us, because even to this day, as much as we have our individual followings, I always think, like, imagine if those forces would have combined and stuff like that, or what would have happened if we had more social media at that point and everything. And you never know what may come of it, but it's just something where my brain always goes into different directions, and I think about the what ifs and what could haves, and it's fun. You can never tell for sure what would have taken place, but sometimes I even wonder if that window for us just changed, where the music itself started evolving, and not necessarily in a direction that we were comfortable with, right?
Making popular music.
Yeah, so like what was considered pop music at that point, or something that was more popular to the folks that was gonna get on the radio and everything.
Yeah, because Wu-Tang was pop music to us. We're like, oh, okay, we could do that, and like,
exactly.
Like, no. It's 2005, 2010, 2015. It just kept changing.
Yeah, you're thinking about Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep, Leaders of the New School, Wu-Tang, all these other people that are doing their stuff, and
they might like your music, but
what's going on, and then by the time we're doing enough to try to make noise,
start switching.
It's not that. What if we had been born a few years earlier and our time would have coincided more with that type of stuff? It's just, those are things sometimes I like to.
But you know what I think is cool though, especially through listening to your show, your podcast, and like
HumanSushiBar.com.
Get it. And
Human Sushi Podcast on all major podcast networks.
Get it. Yeah, but like hearing that there is a story out here that we are a part of. Mm-hmm. And there is a hip hop story in our area that we are part of. Mm-hmm. And it's well known. And that is kind of what we, what you aspire to do at a certain point. And it's cool that we're able to capture it now a little bit more solidified. And if people ask the stories, they could tell us, oh, you had this part wrong or that part wrong. But really, for the most part, it's what it is. The story.
Yeah, we're all soldiers on a battlefield, right?
Exactly.
And like now we can share those war stories with the other soldiers, like
right. But it's official.
H2O and these guys that were like on the other side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not for nothing, for those that are listening, like I ain't trying to toot our own horns, but when we were coming up and we were doing our stuff, and the things that were popping off in Miami at like the quote unquote underground scene, like,
yo, we were better than all y'all.
All of them, son.
That's what you're about to say.
No,
right?
It wasn't. I was gonna say
that's what he really wants.
Yo,
to
we
say.
was killing y'all.
Yo,
when it comes to like
track
being,
for track,
like local celebs, so to speak, like it was something that people knew of us that were in that circle. Like if you went to a performance somewhere and somebody else was doing their thing, and you had conversations about X, Y, and Z crew, and you mentioned CG or you mentioned ID4, you mentioned North and Agony, people were like, oh, I've heard of y'all niggas. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like there was a good we did a really good push. Like we never may have surpassed beyond that, but locally, when shit was popping off, when we were doing our shit hardcore, like people knew of us.
And we always had a pro track, so it was always CG. Somewhere through all those tracks and music, we were all producing and putting out product.
The last pro track that I did on any one of my projects was on my Local Legend mixtape.
Okay.
That was like 2007 or some shit like that. Yeah. I never got another pro track, once I moved to LA and I started doing all my solo shit that eventually came out.
Because you were producing at that point. That's when you were.
I was producing at that time. Yeah.
So you already had passed the baton. You were like, all right, I'm doing it. I got it.
I don't think any of the pro stuff that I did outside of the CG album ever made it onto an official project, because there's a few things that we did with pro on the other stuff we did collectively. But as far as like solo stuff, I have a lot of pro stuff, some banger tracks that I'm hoping to release with the with the idea that I had with you about an alter ego and the type of songs that I've done. That's
well, you just gave it away, so
it's just there.
You're not really supposed to talk about this.
Why not?
This is why you need a publicist, man.
Okay, so we'll edit the shit out if that's the fucking problem.
No edits.
Which is the button? What happens if I push this?
Nah,
Nothing.
I mean the volume's down.
Yeah, nothing.
There we go.
Welcome to Human Sushi.
So
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. It's cool that you're part of, something, that has lineage, that that's like followed a line of other
Lineage?
Lineage? Is it
Lineage.
Lineage. It's
Lineage.
leaning. It's leaning. The Leaning Tower of Pisa.
The pizza.
it's lineage.
The lineage.
The
It's like,
lineage.
damn, son, you into that? You doing the activists and shit?
Dude, you have spiders in here or some shit? Oh no, it's my wife. Look, I found it.
Driving you insane the whole podcast.
The whole
Do
time
you
I've been
have spiders?
grabbing
Oh
my
no,
arm.
that's my wife.
Dude, her hair's been on me for the past what is it, hour and 13 minutes.
Oh, you
now.
thought it was a spider web?
I'm like, what the fuck? Look, I found it.
You're gonna wake up tomorrow with superpowers, bro.
Dude. Thank God I got this off, because then I'll get home and she'll be like, whose hair is that? I'm like, it's yours. No, it's not. Yes, it is.
There's proof that you were recording a podcast. We have evidence.
It's
Anyways,
hilarious.
sorry for the tangent, but let me tell you, man, it's been fun, like putting all this together and going back through all these different, memorable moments that everybody was able to share their different perspectives on like, to your point, Shottie, where their minds were at and how they really felt. And it was nice to get, like I said, that candidness from everybody, where they were free to speak about those moments back then, knowing that, why the fuck would I get offended at this point about how you felt about something X amount of years ago,
Right.
And also like the different perspectives as far as, where Shottie felt there was a division that was caused, where to me that was bullshit. To me, I felt that there was more of a division when this happened,
Yeah.
and it's even something as funny as like me feeling bad about the fact that I remember meeting Pro and Majesty bringing me on board to meet with him and do some tracks, and I'm like, I don't know how the fuck that shit formed, but it did. And then when Pro came on, he's like, well, I don't fucking know either. I just know that we ended up doing a bunch of stuff. Like, all right, so I don't feel bad not remembering those moments,
Right.
It was just like this, whose ever idea this was, I appreciate how it came up and came to be, because the process itself, going through these moments and these memories, and even my own ego boost of Shottie telling me that it wasn't until he heard about me spitting the 13th Apostle, he was like, shit, I need to step my game up to be able to do something that has that type of structure to it.
Facts.
Talk about it.
So like those type of moments, things that I never knew about, that he may have never shared explicitly with me, that
I definitely wouldn't have told you that back then.
yeah, and I understand totally why. It's
Yeah.
not. It's a personality thing. It's also an ego thing, and it's also a music thing. Just being able to be a certain type of MC. You don't want to show your cards or vulnerability.
Right,
to a certain
right.
extent.
Yeah, it was a kick in the ass. I was like, okay, bro, this dude's doing something you can't do. You know what I'm saying? So like, we need to change that.
So it was always it was really nice going through this and learning about those type of things that again had never come up, as like I said, as close as we were back then, and as much as we've been in contact with each other since then. Like, these candid conversations never really happened,
Yeah, I had no idea that you guys were upset about the Tony Gavin beats. I thought it was more about the Last Laugh thing.
Yeah.
Remember, like, when you brought up the Tony Gavin, I was like, oh, that?
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea.
Yeah, for me that was serious. Like, dude, you're jumping on the same shit I already jumped on. Like what the fuck? Because that means at that point one of us is gonna get it, but not both of us is gonna get it. So, what the fuck? And again, and then the thing is also finding out that it wasn't like you knew we had jumped on it. Back then, I thought that, oh, you guys knew, and we're like, well, fuck it. It's a
I'm
Tony
surprised we
Gavin
never
beat,
had this conversation back then. Like,
Yeah, because you know what?
see,
And
that's the thing. I didn't think that you thought that we knew you had a track on it. I don't think I know you had a track on it till like you told me you had a track on it.
The whole thing to me is I think it was at like we were saying before. I think at those moments that were really, really tough, to avoid, at least me personally, like if there's certain people I can be a certain way with. And I guess the older I've gotten, the more I'm just going to be direct with you. And if you can't take that, then I guess I don't, then fuck it, right? But back then it was more of the fact of being more diplomatic about certain situations. And if that was the case, then I'm looking at those type of situations saying, well, if they heard it and they knew that we had jumped on it, then they're hearing the beat. If they were presented with it as it's a possibility and it's a dope track, why shouldn't they jump on it? And, and let the best man win at that point. Like, that's kind of the way I was looking at it. I still didn't feel that it was a direct, like, let's say, blow. But it did bug me because I was like, why at least not a phone call to say, yo, dude, just so you know, I'm going to jump on this and, let's see what happens.
We were excited in that, son.
So, to come to find out that you guys had no idea about it, that's a totally different story.
We got a CD with 5 Tony Gavin beats.
Yeah, out of which, like I said, it's like 2 or 3 tracks that
Both
we've
y'all
also
jumped
done.
I thought it was just one.
No. There's like 2. There's at least 2.
At least 2.
And maybe 3. I have to see. Because I know there's one that we did is called When the Smoke Clears that you guys did. And then there's definitely one other one. Matter of fact, it's either on the Faux Show or the Faux Show 2 that you guys have that.
On the Foreplay.
Or that one.
Yeah, it's on the Foreplay.
You have to actually put it on one of your projects. And then I think for that reason, we never released it on any of ours because we were like, that doesn't make any sense.
It's the remix. Yeah.
So, but yeah, like, those type of nuance and those type of differences and things that, came up throughout this process, I think were really enlightening and it's brought us closer to a certain extent. I think it's been, it's like I said, I don't know whose idea it was initially. Like, I don't know who's the first person that said we should fucking sit down and record all this shit, and whatever came from there. But whoever's idea was between the two of y'all, like, I thank you and I appreciate that you guys reached out to me to be able to be part of this because
you had to be.
This was
literally based
contingent on you being a part of it, man.
Will he do it? Like, I don't see why not.
Yeah, but in essence, you could have done something on your own and then said, all right, yo, Agony, we're ready for you to give your perspective. But to include me as part of the entire process is,
for sure. You guys are
an honor.
You guys are pillars, in CG. If I'm looking at it from, just when Shottie and I were talking about it, that's the easy understanding because CG is literally formed of 2 crews initially and a producer. And those 2 crews had 2 frontmen. And you guys are those 2 frontmen. So it's like the 2 frontmen are talking about how y'all ran, how it all came together and how everything happened and opinions. And you guys were really listening to, North and Littles. You guys were part of that conversation all the time. So you have the best perspective, and you guys did the most work putting out product and putting out music and putting out everything that your journey from the beginning of CG, like musically through, is a pretty crazy journey. So, absolutely, man. Like, it couldn't have been, the story can't be told without y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Shottie and Agony.
And if we were frontmen, it's, I think, because of the work we were willing to do. I don't think it's like a talent thing.
Oh, no, not by talent.
It's the work ethic.
Yeah, productivity, yeah. And it's not that anybody didn't do it. Also, like, it was only 2 people, like, from that perspective.
Right, but it was, one of those people had to do the pushing.
Right.
I think that's what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you both went through that experience.
Yeah.
So you both have, like, a similar conversation perspective from your side and this side, and it's still within the crew of CG. So that was a no-brainer.
Yeah. And we both went on to do solo shit too.
Yeah. I think I said that.
Well, I mean, North has a project, man. I can't even talk about
it. No.
He finally released it.
North has a project out.
He finally released it. And
like 24 songs or something.
Yeah.
The Littles project. There was like
still coming soon.
We put out a track that was like, yo, it's coming sooner. It was Littles. It was a hot ass verse on one of my beats. And that's the only track that got made for that project. It's the coming soon track. He killed it though.
Of course, every time.
Shit was fire, bro.
Every time. But not one time he doesn't.
I gotta see if I can still get the four of us together to do something, man.
That's the only one, man.
Even if I'm the one that produces it at this point, or
I think we
Shottie.
should do Realize. I think we should do the Realize beat and spit 4 new verses on it.
I'm down for whatever, dude. At the end of the day,
Or do a new song, whatever.
I have the instrumental, so
I know
I'm
you
down
do.
for whatever.
I know you do. It's the intro to the show, right?
Yeah.
it is.
There you go.
If the four of us can get together and whatever brings the four of us together for something fresh, I'm definitely down for it.
It'd just be cool to have, man.
Soup, what have you learned, man? Because, like, you know, we got to kind of give you your flowers real quick. Like, you know, like Fred said, Fred is Agony, who's also Daniel. Any other names you want to divulge?
Since that's like a nice question and it doesn't have to break anything, I've been holding out as long as I can. Where the fuck is your bathroom? Because I gotta,
It's right there. It's right there.
All right, we give it the pause. He's like, I can't breathe.
at this point, like I'm about to pop.
You know, let me get a little bit more water.
You don't have a pause button on your stuff, do you?
I could just stop it and start a new track.
No, I think you let it ride.
Whoa! Almost piss on yourself.
Here we are,
We're
back again.
So
We never
So
left.
where were we? I was asking you, what did you pick up
Yeah.
from this podcast? Because you were,
and by you, he means Superman.
Superman.
yeah, because you know, to give credit where credit is due, like, you know, the idea happened with you and I having a conversation, and I would say that more than anyone, as far as like reaching across the aisle, so to speak, you know, like between like your you know, North and Agony and 94. Like, I think you and I are the ones that do the most communicating. I think it's, you know, that's changed a little now since we started doing the podcast, which goes to your point that like this has brought us a little closer together. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we haven't actually like collaborated on a project in fucking years. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for
So
real.
like,
We just watch each other collaborate. We watch each other's project and then like add a 2 cents, but that's about it.
and now we have an album coming out.
That's what I'm saying. Like the funny, I was just about to
Yeah.
say that the funny thing about that is that, you know, and I think if it wasn't for this process, I don't even think the other idea would have come up to be able to do the project that you and I worked on, to be able to put something else out, you know, with that type of concept. So, but anyways, not to pull away. Back to you, Soup. So, like throughout all this, what have you gotten out of
Yeah,
it?
because again, like just to finish giving you the flowers, like you were part of the genesis of this idea, and I think like a very crucial element. I think of, you know, just the CG.
Charlie.
Fucking shout out to Charlie, man. Shout out to Charlie. He's
CG.
Charlie CG too. You know what I mean? He got grandfathered in.
Yeah. Family.
Yeah, but like you're still making music under the CG banner. You know what I mean? And you're really the one that's like really pushing the shit now. So, you know, being that you weren't one of the artists that were like actually making the songs, then you were, you know, there like serving in other capacities or whatever. You know, what's your takeaway?
And before you answer that question, I want to make sure, I don't know if this ever came up anywhere else, so better twice than none, like I always say, right? So for those that don't know, you know, Soup's always been the one from the very beginning that, you know, as much as I give props to Pro for what I've been able to do musically, I need to give props to Pro from props to Dro for what I've been able to do as an artist, you know. And when I came to him and him being family with somebody like Mike Rip, and I started spitting some shit around him, for him to be able to say that, you know, you have a talent that you need to, you know, work on and continue to do things with, you know, it meant a lot from somebody like him. And he's always been my right hand man when it comes to, you know, music and many other things, but mainly with music, where, you know, when I've needed somebody to consult on, or my consigliere, so to speak, and I even think we named you consigliere on the contract that the track that we did,
Whether on wax or that.
you know. And Soup's always been that like hidden person that never needed the limelight or never needed the credit or never needed the recognition, that, came up with ideas for hooks or came up with ideas for how to spit certain things or ways to say certain things or ideas for certain lines when we were stuck, or took a back seat as manager when other people came into the picture, and like never let his ego really take over the situation and let things kind of flourish on their own. Like, I got to give you a lot of props for that, because I think anybody else being around as much as they have and contributing as much as they have with certain situations that they had been in could have taken a lot of things to heart and done certain things in a different way. And I think you really handled yourself very, very professionally from the very get. So the same props that I give to Pro for being young and having that vision to work and orchestrate the things that he did, I got to give you props for being young and having that patience and that professionalism to handle things the way you did with a lot of the shit that you went through. So,
and not looking for the limelight too, which is important.
Very, very important, because we've worked with certain people that their reach for the limelight were, in my opinion, were issues behind some of the things that we were trying to do, where they wanted to be more of an artist than we were. And when we're trying to do something collectively, that kind of posed its own certain situations. So
does it rhyme with? No, just kidding.
So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that for those that are listening that don't know Dro, or Superman as we call him, that they understand what role he's played in a lot of this, from having his radio show in FIU and creating avenues for us to do things there, and setting up the show at the Chili Pepper, which is iconic for us and the stuff that we did. And, to this date, continuing with his cousin Jamal and drummers and singers, and setting up a studio in his crib, and still creating a venue to be able to do things, and motivating us to do this type of process, and always reaching out to me saying like, yo, you need to get back on the mic, or can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And trying to stay relevant and in the game. Like he's kind of also played a huge instrumental piece in me continuing what we did in the pact that we created way back in the day, which says that regardless of what happens, we're always going to create music. So that's who's about to answer this question for those that don't know.
It's crazy too, just to say one last thing, that like you're putting putting music out now under the CG banner, right?
Right.
And none of us had anything to say about that. We're like, yeah, homie, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You put in the work, homie. It's like CG, like, you know what I'm saying? You didn't have to come to us to like, yo, is it cool if I, like, nah, bro. You know what I'm saying?
No,
it's just
I'm CG,
automatic. Yeah,
absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, no, and to Shot's point, so that way people know what we're talking about. It's not like he was putting out stuff that was with us. We're talking about new artists, new musicians under that CG banner, and none of us batted an eye at it,
Yeah,
so
it wasn't even like a thought. You know what I'm saying? I really just thought of it right now, to be honest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, thank you, first of all. Thank both of you, but I think, to the point that you guys are making, I never personally felt more privileged to be around like what we were around. Like it was phenomenal to me, because I think with my cousin, with Mike Rip, he was so ahead of it. Like we were like in junior high and he was doing shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So you couldn't like live it.
No, I had to go home at a certain time. I had to be home at a certain time. And when it was somebody in my generation doing it at the same age that most people were doing it, it was like 19, 20, I could kick it, and be out. And the fact that, first time Agony talks about, the first time like we talked and I was able to give him feedback, the fact that he took the feedback and got better was mind blowing to me. Because Mike Rip was like hard headed, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he had his thought, and it wasn't even about considering the other thought sometimes. Which, like, for me, like musically, when he did tracks, like those were the parts that I made sure didn't happen in like as much as I could, as much as vocal as I could be, didn't happen in like the Common Ground projects. So when I heard like, yo, you would have a hook, Shottie or Agony or North have crazy hooks, and it was always like, okay, that's fine. I don't need a help there. And then I would hear the verse, and I'm like, nah, I don't really need a help there. So maybe I'm like, well, what can I do? Or maybe how you spit it. Like I'd have to find something like to work on. And if I found it and you guys would agree on it, it got done. So if we were doing a track and I wanted sound effects, or we talked about sound effects, I'd be down to do the work and go to the studio with Pro or go to the studio with one of y'all and learn. And you guys were like, I know you guys were learning also, but you guys were definitely teaching. You know, you guys were showing me what it takes. And to be honest, I knew the talent that you guys had. It wasn't my talent. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have the angry battle rap Shottie syndrome, and I didn't have that poetic write a 8-minute song, Agony, 13th Apostle. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have like some of the traits that Pro had or Littles had or, you know, North had. But I felt like even though I didn't, you guys were still willing to listen. And if you guys were willing to listen, I was willing to learn. And through the osmosis of the whole situation, by the time, you know, we're doing the CG stuff right now, I learned all of that shit from y'all. I went to y'all training ground. You know, Agony let me his NPC when he went on his honeymoon with his wifey. You know, when I got Reason, you know, I went to your house for tutorials. You know what I'm saying? So you guys really built, like, you know what I'm saying, that confidence in me. And if I know I can make y'all rock, you know what I'm saying, over a track, I know it's dope. So, and I love music. So you guys like gave me a free access to the playground to watch, the Dream Team, the Kendall Dream Team fucking practice. And I'm like, you know, my jump shot got better by just hanging out. And like, it was really cool for me. And it really gave me a new purpose. You know, it gave me a new focus, and it gave me a new, and when I say new, like, you know, there really wasn't anything I did besides go to school, you know, holler at girls. You know what I'm saying? That was it. That's it. Like, there was nothing else to do.
And if I could say something about Dro also, like one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I touched on based on what he said there is that there's a key thing to what he said, which is that when he found an opportunity to recommend or suggest or advise or creatively speak, is what he did. He wasn't one of those that felt the need to constantly say something, right? It was if there was something there to say, he would say it, but it wasn't like some of those people that sit there and say, oh well, I gotta find something to say or something to nitpick at or something to just to say something, you know, like the type of person that's like just want to say something just because, you know. Usually his recommendations or suggestions were always relevant. Some were taken, some were used, some were not, but it wasn't anybody that would bog down the creative process because of the fact they were trying to quote unquote help out, you know. I mean, if there was anything bad about Dro, it was just that whenever we were freestyling, if he decided to freestyle, then you could pretty much consider the beat over because he never shut up unless you decided to cut him off.
Better put that beat on repeat. Call it a break.
Either you cut him off or you just give up on the track. That was pretty much it.
Well, freestyling runs in my family. Some better than others, but we can ride the beat, boy.
You know, whenever you thought he was finishing, like, nope, he's still going.
But what have you learned as far as like the podcast?
Good question. Way to reel it back in.
As far as the podcast goes, I think the perspectives that you guys were talking about really hit home. Like, I think some of the things were taken for me a little bit more personal on some levels and less focus on, you know, on lighter issues. Maybe I might have taken too serious and vice versa, or maybe I didn't like see the big perspective. And like hearing, you know, everybody's perspective on it kind of helps me get balance and better vision of exactly, you know, what happened. We started a crew randomly, apparently, it felt like. And when we started the crew, the pieces behind you and North rhyming together beforehand, and like all the little dots that started being connected with Profile, and how he was really, you know, he's hanging out with this person and that, you know, connected to this person. And then all of it eventually connects and I thought it was like randomness. You know, I just thought like it was just pure. I mean, for some people's perspective, it might be, but I thought the whole Common Ground thing was literally, you know, this guy heard this guy rap. This guy wants to make some beats. He knows some other guy that's rapping. He's gonna put y'all together. Y'all gotta rap. I didn't know like you and North battled or ciphered, you know, years before Common Ground was even on the table. I didn't know, you know, how everybody kind of just, I think it was meant to be. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's why we're here right now, why we're able to talk about it and
talk about it
and reflect. I learned that I was really happy to have everybody in the studio and coming out to the crib, and I wasn't really in work mode majority of the time. I was in talk shit and party mode because it was like a 90s party. Like a late 90s party at the crib where everything is just, it was like a throwback, man. It's like going in a time machine and seeing everybody, you know, just kind of interact, and it was the same exact dynamic
Right.
as it like originally was. So it made me realize that it was something, you know, for real. Like the fact that you and I are cool, me and Agony are cool. We make, you know, music and work on projects and just kind of still bounce ideas off of each other to this day. A lot of shit could have brought us apart from this. And like the fact that everybody came out for the show, for the podcast, everybody was able to, you know, say their part, show up. That was already dope. You know, like that proved that it was something, you know, important in their lives too. It wasn't just something in my imagination.
Right.
That was dope.
Right.
You know.
And I think to talk about the creative process a little bit, even with when it comes to Dro and everybody in general, I think even throughout the course of this podcast, we've showed some of that as well. I mean, this, for those that are listening to it, this is literally take 3 at trying to wrap this thing up. You know, there was the first one that we did, then Pro passed, and we said we need to do another one. And that one was done, and it just wasn't of the quality that we felt was worth putting out. And collectively, we made a decision to come back and have a similar conversation, to try to make it as fluid as possible to do it again. And even throughout that, also, there were things that I was bugging Shottie about that I'm like, yo, I'm listening to this, and I can't believe that I'm saying this type of thing. What was it, like type shit? I think it was. I was like, if I hear myself say the word type shit again, I'm gonna fucking shoot myself in the head, you know. And we talking about, you know, Dro getting overly excited when the 4 of us were together, and it was like, you know, well, that may or may not have been the best recording that we had. And just as we've progressed even through this, like, it's just the nature of the way that we do things, and it's I think it's kind of dope that we even ended up having to come back and do this, because the way that this one ran and the way that it was recorded and the equipment that we're using this time around is almost like an essence of the way we've done things over the course of the years, that it's progressively gotten better.
Culminated,
you know what I'm saying?
Culminated into this moment.
One steady rise.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Elevated, son.
So, you know, if for any reason this episode sounds better than all the other ones, there's a reason behind it.
Well, that's another thing. Like, you know, doing this podcast kind of like kickstarted my podcast, which is now like on episode 35, and by the time this comes out, it'll probably be on episode
65.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a major thing now. I got this it's human sushi like every week, you know what I'm saying? We haven't missed a week for 35 weeks, and we don't plan to do it anytime soon. And that really started because we did this podcast, you know what I mean? And podcast. I'm still not ready to have a podcast or a podcast. But yeah, man, that wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if it was for this. So.
And to your point, a lot of human sushi guest sushi are people that knew you from the beginning when you were doing music,
right? And
kind of followed your career up to this point, and they know your talent, they know your quality, and there is they want to be part of it, or at least tell their story or communicate and still be whatever we did back then with Common Ground still matters to us today. Like, it's still literally involved in a big part of our lives with what we do,
right?
And it's really a full circle of reflection to pay attention to, like, how dope that shit is. That a lot of people can't say that. A lot of people can't say that their crew did this and this time, did this and that time, and is still doing something today, and is still kind of relevant in a medium that's like forever changing. You know, like it's hard. That's not.
Yeah, and in our defense, I think that the part of that is like even for this particular project, like that the time that it's taken for us to be able to put this out, and eventually, if you're hearing this at this point, whenever it is that it is, it's because there's a certain bar that's set when we've decided to do something, and we've never tried to go anything below that. If we're going to put something out, like it needs to be a certain quality, it needs to be done a certain type of way. We all need to be in agreement. And if we're not, for whatever reason, then we just let time go until we can have those discussions, you know, collectively and get things done. Because honestly, we could have pushed this out at the end of last year. And I won't say what year it is, because who knows when the fuck this shit's going to get put out, right?
Don't
say
shit.
no year.
So, but you know, to that
2025.
to that extent, you know, it's we really could have taken the position to say, well, just let it out the way it is and fuck anything else. And you know, we've creatively decided that we wanted to do something a certain type of way, and we wanted it to sound a certain type of way, and we want to do things that we want to do. And throughout the course of that process, you know, some feel one way, some feel another, but until we've collectively said that this is how we want to push forward together as a unit on that common ground, like it doesn't get done.
CG,
you know, and that's there's a beauty behind that, you know, and I think that it's something that we've really just learned to grow accustomed to, where other people might look from the outside in and say, you know, well, if that was me, you know, fuck that, I don't care what this motherfucker thinks, I'm gonna just go ahead and just move forward without him. You know, it just doesn't operate that way. You know, we're one that we try to move as a unit and make sure that everybody's cool with whatever goes is. Not everybody might get their way, but at the end of the day, they were okay with the way things
they
went
get
down.
their say. They get that space on common ground. It's a dope idea, and it's still fucking dope.
Yeah, and the name is relevant to this day too.
Yeah.
You know, because this is the common ground. This is our common ground.
Exactly.
It's our story.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
I feel like we should end it right there. The music should go
Dun,
in.
dun, dun, dun.
Cue
Right?
the music.
Dun, 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 dun.
My drink is done, so we might as well
Dun,
finish it.
Any closing things you want to say, or that was kind of a closing thing, right?
No, I think
I mean, you got something you got
for anybody who's listening that's from back in the day, I hope you've enjoyed, you know, the story. If we're lucky enough to have anybody listening that knows nothing about us, I hope you've enjoyed the story. And if you're young enough and you're an up-and-coming artist, I hope that you've taken something from this that'll let you know to be overall you more than anything, right? Because I think at the end of the day, as much as we were influenced by so many different artists, when we came to the table and we were doing the things that we were doing, I don't recall doing things to say, well, I want to sound like Meth, or I want to sound like Red, or I want to sound like Ghostface, or I want to sound like Bust. You know, it was just I wanted to do something that I wanted to go back in my car and listen to, you know, that I personally enjoyed. And at the end of the day, you know, if you do music for you, like, I think that's what you should really be doing. Now, if that happens to be something for everybody, then more power to you. And if it's not, then, you know, it sucks for you. But at the end of the day, you're happy with what you're doing. But don't go down that path of doing stuff just because you want to sound like the next dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Like, enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
You know, like, the journey is what this whole podcast was about, you know, and it's not about, like you said, millions of record sales, you know, hopefully 100 or 1,000 or whatever it is. But the joke is, it's not about that. It's about the journey. And that's why it was so important. The people we met, the people we lost, the people that kind of they're part of our story, and the fun part is the journey.
Yeah, I can't wait
know?
for this to finally be out. And even though I've heard some of these already, for me to be able to go into whatever venue it's available in and just listen to it myself.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to hear it.
Right.
You know, and that's what this is about.
Yeah.
You know?
Therapy.
I wish we would have done the whole thing on this machine. It would have made it so much
Oh
easier.
my God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it wasn't available whenever it was that we started this shit
Yeah.
X amount of time
Yeah,
ago.
literally wasn't even out yet.
Yeah.
Shout out to everybody involved in this podcast. Obviously, you guys, Agony, Soop, rest in peace to Profile.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Littles, North, and also like the extended fam, CG, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
R.I.P. Cash.
Yep.
Shout out to Salazar. Shout out to Spawn.
Yep.
Doc.
Yeah, Doc Spawn. Gold. Shout out to Gold. All the SLP.
All of them.
Yeah,
Fury.
man. Everybody. Yeah, Nick
Yeah.
Fury.
Vortex.
There's a lot
Rest
of people.
in peace, Mike Rip. Like, I mean, they've all gotten their flowers over the course of this spot. But
And they all
you're
were on
right.
CG tracks, yelling CG, having fun with us.
Yeah, real shit.
Producing with us, making things happen. So for real, it's a big family of musicians.
Yeah, man. Shout out to everybody. And again, like, I hope that you were able to pick something up, from this. I think there are like universal themes that we've hit. Like, even if you don't necessarily know who we are or what we did back then or anything like that, I think there's a lot of just lessons and just interesting human interactions, I think, that we've had, you know what I mean? Anytime that like people that, shared a battlefield, so to speak, start giving their perspectives of what was going through their minds when they were, sharing that battlefield. I think it's interesting. So I think there's something here for everyone. And that's it. That's the end of my pitch. Do you want to buy what I'm selling or not?
Only $9.99.
That was an infomercial.
Sponsorship, son.
Yeah, hit us up.
Right back in the mode. And that's what it is, man. That's dope, man. Yo, well, that's it then, man. The CG story. It's not the Superman show. It's the CG story. I want y'all to play it back a few times and enjoy that episode with Pro. It's really special.
Peace, y'all.
CG.
We're coming out! Guns blazing! Blazing! Blazing!
Little man. I have you faggot rappers gassing while they teasing your perm. Blazing your raps to ashes, trapping squeezed in the urn. Little man will wait until the day that Jesus return. Burning more dickheads in the hook of that disease with a germ. The reason I'm firm, the bitches got me eager to sperm. On the knees, clutching the pussy while she pleasing my worm. You're fiending to learn the way y'all like them season they burn. But fuck pounds, I wanna see some cheese in return. The G's that you earn, snatch it out your jeans and in turn. The dead shot, scoop up the fan, go pop some trees and let's burn. The leaves of this herb got me fueled to speaking in terms. Defeating these herbs, sleeping on my fleet is absurd. So creeping is served, or simply take a seat and observe. And if you taking notes on what this nigga's teaching, say word. So small time you struggle leaping the curb, while we exchange domination plots and secretive verbs. If you a style molester, you ain't beating the serve. You'll be biting my shit so much you might as well be eating my turds. I'll kill us both and watch it go spill the heat it deserves.
I'm staring death in the face,
giving the reaper the bird.
Yo, we was 5 deep and the many lifted and wasted. When Pro showed us a beat and gave us permission to rape it. So I slipped in the basement, started stripping it naked, spitting away till that bitch got a tit in the face bit. Ripping them tapes with alien reptilian races, plotting to blow the earth up and dip in the spaceship. Sneak a full clip in the station, itching the spray shit. For having joints that ain't common ground shit in your playlist. Way ahead of our time, y'all are still in the basics. Give your living abrasion for spitting that brave shit. I'm collecting bodies for filling the cave with, while a few that survive just stand still in amazement. Way sick, robbing your dollar bill and your bracelet. Seen the therapist and I started killing his patients. Problem is, you acting not willing to face it. I'm gripping the blade, sick of the plague, iller than AIDS is. Got you clicking submission, kissing the pavement. Grab any tape and what you dissing quick and erase it. Spitting the gauges till my ammunition is wasted. Cocking your mouth and I feel like pissing, you taste it. Yo, I don't listen to riffing and raving, but word is you got a crackhead ass bitch and a gay kid. After the feeling of being locked, living in cages, I got sick of the bull, so like Pippin, I'm blazing. Realize, if you yapping your jaws, you better realize. Ain't your average fool, you better realize. Nobody laughing at all. If you can't damage your mic, what you grabbing it for? You better realize. If you yapping your jaws, you better realize. Ain't your average fool, you better realize. Nobody laughing at all. If you can't damage your mic, what you grabbing it for?
Making my mission to aim, cause niggas ain't spitting the same. I'm sending one split in your brain in case you forgetting the name. It's North, and I'm known for my submissions of pain. The competition's lame, so I'm leaving them shit in the stain. Wanna know what nice is, and the definition is plain. Common ground leaves seeing tragic like demolitions of trains. I'm in and out of ciphers like magicians in chains. Got niggas fiending about me like it's an audition of fame. I'm making a statement like a politician with game, giving permission to blame me when the opposition is vain. I blow your spot like turning your ignition to flames, while I smoke out and give get vibes from them musicians that reign. I told you, my whole rap coalition's insane. No for grabbing the wrist and putting incisions in veins. And simple and plain, we can face off like Nicolas Cage. I'm spitting with aim, and right now you sitting in range. While I'm pissing on dames within a position to gain the keys to their husband's brand new glistening range. And if niggas gave you dabs, then the decision was lame. And if they still think you hot, then we don't listen the same. My ammunition will drain with no repetition. I claim the baddest. You grab a mic and start hitting your frame. Hook, I got you fishing for change, sniffing the cane, overdosing in your crib, reminiscing of shame.
I'm shaving the sum of the whack, leaving them naked and stunned, bringing heat to their chest like a shot of Jamaican rum. A lot of niggas try hard, but they really faking, son. Out of every 100 MCs, the amount spraying is some. Most of y'all couldn't hang if we were playing for fun. It's known I may be slim, but lyrically I'm weighing a pun. Craving for funds, won't stop until my brain is numb. Damaging tracks, making more noise than Harley Davidsons. Blazing guns, getting on point across, stated and done. Snatching niggas off their high horses to break them to crumbs. Niggas couldn't have a crowd to get elevated and sprung. I bet they the type to leave bitches fiending and waiting to come. I got them all confused looking for places to run, cause they feel they're getting hit but can't catch where I'm aiming from. Trying to uphold the image when they got faces like bums. I lead them to a cliff and be the cause of them taking the plunge. Concussions, bruises, broken bones, and the ache in their lungs. Use a razor and amuse myself by raking their tongues. The true meaning and purpose of their creation is none. At least I'm who wakes up in the morning and raises the sun. Ain't no taming this one, stick them to the pavement like gum. So everyone can walk all over for them claiming they flung some type of skills. The only defense I can say is they dumb. They probably got a mill of excuses, all I'm making is one. The only thing ignorance will get them in this game is hung. Asked out in the cold, facing what they brung. I stay lacing the drums. My team sick, twisted, wasted and strung. The type to raid the churches and start raping the nuns. Wilding out in artificial emotions, caked with drugs, draped in the slums. Underground until our final day is come. Let anyone who wanna attempt step into our chambers done. Get roped off, snatched for your soul, staring into Satan's mug.
If you yapping your jaws, you better realize. You ain't your average fool, you better realize. Nobody laughing at all. If you can't damage a mic, what you grabbing it for? You better realize. If you yapping your jaws, you better realize. You ain't your average fool, you better realize. Nobody laughing at all. If you can't damage a mic, what you grabbing it for? What you grabbing it for? What you grabbing it for?